Hello, this is Battalion Chief Greg Lightcap, Chief of Information Services. This is going to be a video introduction to ArcGIS mapping and a tutorial on collecting pre-plans using the ArcGIS Collector application. In the past, we've used paper copies in a pre-plan binder for our fire pre-plans. Many of them were not updated regularly, and it was difficult to find those pre-plans in the binder during an emergency response. More recently, we started using emergency reporting to collect pre-plans. The problem with that is it's difficult to log in and go to occupancies and then inspections and then find the pre-plan and open it up. And even when you do, they have limited information in them and they're not in a very user-friendly format. So we wanted to find a new solution that would be more long-term and suit our needs better. The goals we were looking for was to have a pre-planned program that was NFPA 1620 compliant, fully digital format for the pre-plans, easily collected and updated. We wanted them to be collected and accessed via any web-enabled device, whether it be a personal cell phone or tablet or computer. And we wanted to display the pre-plans using GIS, which is Geographic Information Systems. They use visual icons placed over a building outline and to have more detailed information organized in a more intuitive way so that we can access it quickly. And we'll see that here during this instructional part of the tutorial. GIS, Geographic Information Systems, was developed a long time ago to make it possible for information that has like a location attribute that is tied to some type of a location physically to be represented visually on a map. That's very useful. For example, our pre-planned list of buildings is old and hasn't been updated in many years. And it's very possible and very likely, and we find these regularly, that there's buildings in the city that aren't even on our list to do pre-plans or to do inspections for. And that's because our list for buildings is in a database spreadsheet format. And that doesn't help us to know if there's anything missing. So if you're able to transfer that location attribute of the data, you could see some type of designator on the buildings in a map. In this case, when we're doing it, we're going to be creating polygon outlines around each building. Once that's done and all of them are in there, then you can look at the overhead view of the map and try to find buildings that are not on the list, that are missing, that don't have that polygon around them. And that's only possible using GIS instead of a spreadsheet. So that's why we're looking to move to a GIS type platform. ESRI is the company that is the GIS platform that the city of Cleveland uses. We've had an enterprise license with them for many years. ESRI was established in 1969. They do over $1 billion in revenue every year. They're a very large company. We currently use ESRI for our CityWorks. CityWorks is built on ESRI. Our members use CityWorks to collect hydrant information when we're doing our flows. We also use Survey 123 on a daily basis, and that's also built on ESRI. That's an ESRI application. Our city's public utilities and many other systems for different divisions are partially or fully integrated in with ESRI tools. And that was something we were looking for, having a stable system that isn't going anywhere, because we switch records management systems every once in a while. So this system is not going anywhere. We'll have it for a long time. Now getting to this particular tutorial on how to collect pre-plans. There's two main functions for our pre-plan project that we have that we're rolling out here. One of them is to collect the pre-plans, and the other one is to view the pre-plans. And those are two distinct things. So for collecting the pre-plans, which we're going to go over in this video, we use the ESRI Collector application. And on your screen there in the top left of this Android device, you can see the icon for the Collector application. This is designed for mobile devices, but it can be used on a desktop computer and on MDTs. We'll have a separate video to go over how to use that interface. It's very similar. There's some slight differences. So we will have a video for using the desktop application. The application is free to download on any device. You don't need a license. It doesn't cost anything. And you use the same login credentials as you use for Survey 123. Those credentials are on SharePoint under the ISU tab in the Survey 123/collector username and passwords file. The desktop application is available for Windows 10 only. So about half of our computers out at the stations will have this collector application installed on it, and you'll be able to use it right away. We're working on getting at least one desktop computer per station loaded up with this in the next week or so, in the coming days. In order to do that, we're going to have to update some of the computers from Windows 7 to Windows 10, which requires a hard drive upgrade. So that's not something we can't do easily or over the internet. So we'll be working on that. To view the pre-plans, that'll be on a separate video. But to view them, we use an ESRI web application built from our pre-planned map. The map we're building using the Collector app, so we collect the information in the Collector app. That information gets put onto our map, and the web application for viewing lets us view that map in an interface that's very easy to search addresses quickly and get that information for easy viewing. And like I said, we'll be covering that in a separate video. The top right of that Android device there is the icon for the CFD pre-planned viewing application. It's actually a web link is what it is. So the Collector app installs just like any other application that you put on a phone or a PC or on a tablet. So you download it, you install it, you open the application. So we're going to open it here. And it's going to ask you to log in. So again, you'll use your login credentials, the same ones that you use for Survey 123 in order to log in. And once you're logged in, you probably won't see all of these maps. You may see a couple. The top map, the one titled CDF Pre-Planning Map, Cleveland Division of Fire Pre-Planning Map, that's the map that we use. So you're going to go ahead and click on that. Okay, you'll see the little location services warning come up at the bottom there. So if you have location services for this application, wherever you go, it's always the map's gonna want to always center on where you're at. Because I'm not actually on site doing a pre-plan, I turn that off. It gets frustrating if you're not on site. If you're back at the station and you want to put in a pre-plan and you have location services on, as you're working on that building where you're doing the pre-plan, it's going to keep moving your map back to where you're physically at. So the easiest way to collect these is to be on site and be collecting them in real time. And if you're doing that, then you can leave the location services on, and that'll be helpful. So just a little overview of how GIS works. GIS are layers built onto a map. So we have our map, we have our base map here, and you can see we have things like the city names, and you see the little building outlines and roads. That's the base map. That's something that you don't change. That will always stay the base map. And then on top of that, as we're working with our information, we create layers, and we put layers onto that map. So right now you're looking at multiple layers. You see, I'll back out a little bit here. When I back out, you'll see just the battalion layers. So those are the battalion boundaries. And if you zoom in, you'll see the fire station layer come up. So we have every fire station listed there with the title. And you'll notice as you work in this program, it takes a little while to get used to, but if you're not seeing something that you expect to see, it's probably because of your zoom level. So if everything was showing up all the time when you zoomed out, the icons and everything would get so dense that you wouldn't be able to see the map any longer, and that doesn't help. Plus, it uses a lot of the system resources, and everything goes really slow. So we make things appear and disappear as we think makes sense. So as you zoom in closer, certain things will disappear, like the battalion boundaries will disappear as you zoom in closer, and other things will appear. So now we can see building outlines here. Those are pre-plans that have been created, the building outlines, the polygons. As we zoom in closer, you'll see some icons pop up within those pre-plans. Now, if all those icons showed up while we were out here, you wouldn't be able to see the streets or the buildings or anything because it would be full of icons once we get more data put into here. So that's why things disappear and reappear depending on your zoom level. All right. So we'll go through some of the tools in this application before we get into entering a pre-plan. So across the top, you have your little toolbar there. The diamond, the black diamond there, that's your layers. You can see it looks like there's another little layer below it. So when you click on that, it's going to show you all of your layers that are active or inactive. If the check mark is in the box, then it's active. If it's not, then it's inactive. So here you can see we have the fire stations are active because you can see fire station 1 there. So if I shut that off here, that becomes inactive and you see it disappears. It doesn't delete it, it's still there. It's just you're choosing what you want to see on the map. So you can play around with those and have those set however you like it on your device. Next, we have the little search bar that comes up. So if you're searching for the address for the pre-plan you're going to do, you would type it in here. And the address will come up and you select. Usually it's the top one and it'll take you to that address there. So there we have 1645 Superior. So it's just a quick way of finding the address. And then if you click on the little menu to the top right, we have base map, bookmarks, legend, and measure. The base map, we're not going to mess with that because you don't want to change the base map. You won't be able to change the base map. But the base map is linked to where those polygons are. So if you put a different base map in there, the polygon that you create for a building is no longer going to match up with that building. So we don't want to change that. If you click on bookmarks, bookmarks can be useful. You can add bookmarks on your device. If you want to make just your battalion a bookmark, you can do that, or the area around your station. For example, I have Cleveland as a bookmark, so if I click on that, you'll see it's going to take me to see the entire city of Cleveland. It takes me back. So that's all that does. And you can create those and have them set up however you want. So we'll zoom back in here around Station 1's area. Next is the legend. The legend, just like any map, it tells you what each of the items are that are on the map. And okay, so we'll zoom in here so we get some icons up there. Okay, now you can see that whatever is showing up on the map, the legend will show you what those things are. Okay, and we'll go over all of these things as we go through the pre-plans. The last one is measure. So you can make measurements if you want to know, if I want to plan how much land I'm going to need for a fire in this building here, and I want to measure between the front door to the street, I can change my distance. It's set on miles down here. It's in the bottom right. So we would change that to feet. All right. And then you would just zoom in here, tap on the building as one point and then the street as the other. And you see it gives you 91.16 feet. So that's a good tool to use if you want to measure distances of things. And we'll delete that. All right. So now we'll get into creating pre-plans. This is fairly simple. Once you do it once or twice, they go really smooth. They go quickly. So let me find a easy building here. So we'll pre-plan this building. So the first thing you want to do when you're doing a pre-plan is, if it's not already there, and remember that as you add these things, they'll be there the next time you do a pre-plan. So the next time you do one, you won't have to draw the polygon. You won't have to add all the icons. You're just going to be verifying that the information is the same, or deleting or adding things as is appropriate for the changes since the last time somebody pre-planned it. One important point here for the sake of consistency is when we're doing pre-plans, we pre-plan buildings. So if you have one building with multiple occupancies in it, multiple different businesses, you're still going to draw this polygon around the entire building. And then from there, we have the option to add firewalls, and we also have the option to add occupancy dividing walls. So you can divide up this building once it's created with the red polygon outline. You can divide it up into different occupancies. So if you go to Tower City and you're doing a pre-plan for Tower City, it's still going to be one pre-plan. It's going to be one building because when we respond to a fire in a building, we fight the fire in the building as a whole, not just separate occupancies, because smoke and fires and heat spread throughout the building. And most of the systems involved with fighting the fire are installed throughout the whole building. So we should have one pre-plan for every individual building. So to begin, we're going to click the little plus button down at the bottom. And when you do that, you'll see two things happen. Excuse me. First, the little menu comes up from below, and that gives you a list of all the items that you can add to a pre-plan. And also you see the crosshairs come up at the top in a circle. So I forget about this. Oftentimes I'll start to create a pre-plan, and if the map is centered there and I hit suppression pre-plan info, which is the little square, red square that's to create the polygon, I click that, and it actually creates a point there. So you see that's not where I wanted the point. So you want to make sure that your crosshairs are in the right spot before you click that item. If you don't, it's not a big deal. You just hit the menu here, the three dots on the right side, and click on undo, and it just goes away. So from there, then you would put your crosshairs on the spot you want to start, add point, and I'm just going to do this quickly, not very accurate, add point. And then once you have your polygon created, all your points made, you can now enter the information in for that item. So the polygon that surrounds the building for the pre-plan is the primary source of information for a pre-plan. So when you're responding to an incident, you're going to want to just click on that building inside of that polygon, and that information for that suppression pre-plan info is going to come up. And that's the information that I'm going to show you here that we would put in. Now, I'm not, for sake of brevity, I'm not going to add everything into here. It would take a while. There's quite a bit of information here, but you have things like building name, the address, location description, square footage. You'll notice that when there's a 0 in the for the item, that means that you can only put numbers in there. Some of these items have calculations in the background. For example, when you put square footage of the building and a couple other things, it calculates the amount of water that you would need based on the size of a fire. And you'll see that will come up when we do the view pre-plans. That will show up there. You'll be able to see that. So we get an estimate of how much water we need depending on how large the fire is. So you want to make sure you're entering the information properly so it can do that calculation. So the one thing here, you have I want to mention here, square footage of first floor. So that's important for figuring out our required fire flow. You don't have to measure to get the square footage. You'll see up at the top there that after you drew the polygon, the square footage came up for you automatically, and it says 10,781 square feet. So you would just enter that in here, 10,700, and we'll round it up to 82 square feet. Okay, so you don't have to do the calculation on that. It's already there for you. I do want to mention one thing. If that area, I have it set in square feet. If that's not set in square feet, if it says acres, then you need to go into the settings for the measurements and change that for the area to square feet instead of acres. And I'll show you how to do that after we enter this item in here. So we have building height in feet, number of floors, and these things are entered in here in the order that we believe are most important information that you want to get the quickest as you're responding. So you don't have to weed through a bunch of other information that maybe isn't as important to you before you get to that critical information. So here we have the NFIRS code, which is the use type. A lot of these have items you can select where they have drop downs where you just pick the item. The other ones further on will have a lot of items where you have to actually type something in. So roof type, floor construction type, vacant building, fall, trip hazard, structural compromise, maze-like area. See in there, you would just type in basement, northwest corner is maze-like, or the third floor is maze-like in this building, and you put any other information that you want in there. Compromised stairs, exposed structural members. I'm not going to read through all this stuff. You can look at all this stuff, but there's quite a bit of information in here. And having all this information is what makes this pre-plan NFPA 1620 compliant, which was important to us. So you see as you get down lower, some of the stuff isn't as important, maybe like vermin present, squatters present, um, fences, barriers, things like that. At the bottom, you want to make sure that you put this information in correctly, the very bottom here, because this is where you're going to get credit for doing the pre-plan. If you don't put your information in properly, then when the report is run for the battalion chief or the assistant chief, the pre-plan you did will not come up properly if you don't put this information in there properly. So you want to make sure you put your rank, your last name, the company that you're doing the pre-plan for. If you're detailed, it would be the company you're doing the pre-plan for that you would put in here. And then the reporting company shift. So you want to put your shift in here. The date is automatically put in here, so you don't have to worry about having that, but you want to make sure all this information is entered correctly. Once all that's done, you'll hit the check mark on the top right, and it's going to put all that information into that polygon that you drew. So now we see our polygon there. If we click on it, that will allow us to see all the information that we entered in there. Now, if this was already here and you're doing a pre-plan on a building that already exists, you would click on that polygon there, and then you would click on the bottom left there, there's a little pencil icon. You would click on that to edit it, or you can go all the way to the bottom here, and you can click on edit here. And that will open it up then so that you can start editing the information in there or verifying it's correct or changing it. And then once you're done with any changes, again, on the top right, hit that check mark, because if you don't, then you'll lose the information that you entered into there. All right, so that's that. Now, I do want to show quickly here in the settings where you change the, let's back out of here, where you change if you don't have square footage, you have acreage. So if you click on the little person on the top right, the little silhouette, and you go down to units under general, and then we want to do measurement, we want to do area. So click on area. And here we have it set on automatic. If you have it on automatic, it will do square feet until you do a really big building. Then it's going to automatically move to acres. So we want to put this on square feet. So that's always square feet, and keep it like that and back out of there. And then we can go back into our map and pick up where we left off at. So that's how you change that if you need to. Okay, so now let's get into some of the other information you can add here. So if we click say we want to add some more information, we'll click on the plus button and say there's a firewall here. Okay, so if there's a firewall dividing this building, I'm going to put the hash marks on the one side of the firewall, and then I'm going to select the little firewall with a dotted icon there. And my first point is created already, and I'm going to move it to the other side and hit add point. And then I can put information about the firewall. Each of the icons or visual things that you put down there, you can always add information to that as well. Usually not a lot of information, but so for this one, the construction type of the firewall, the rating in hours, and then any comments. And then you hit the check mark, and it will put that firewall there for you, and that's there. So let's go to another item. Let's say, okay, so like I mentioned, the polygon, the suppression pre-plan info polygon that we created, that has the primary information that first responders are going to want to see when they're going to a fire or an emergency in a building. Then we have two other sources of information that are important, especially if you're there for a prolonged incident or assistant chief wants to have somebody do some more research on the building. So here we have the two little bubble pop-ups. The one says FPB pre-plan info, and the other says EHS pre-plan info. So for the FPB pre-plan info, we'll click on that. We don't want it there. We want it in the building. So we'll update point. And there you can see all the different information that our FPB officers, inspectors, will put in here. It's a little more technical information. So we're saving that for the pre-plan or for the fire prevention state fire inspectors to put in for you. It's not a lot of information, but if you have a big fire there, it's stuff that the assistant chief is going to want to know. So we didn't put any information, but we'll put that in there. And then let's add the next one is the EHS pre-plan info. So we only have a little over 100 EHS facilities in the city. EHS stands for extremely hazardous substance. These are facilities that have an amount of a certain substance that is beyond what is allowed without being an EHS facility. So our hazmat specialist unit in the Bureau do the inspections on these buildings, and they're going to enter the information in here for you. So we'll click on that. And again, we'll update the points inside the building. And then we'll go through some of the information. I'll just scroll through. I'm not going to talk about all of it, but very, very detailed information about the hazards of the specific chemical that this building is an EHS facility site for. So there's a lot of good information. If you have a big hazmat incident at one of these facilities, this is very important information that the incident commander would want. Be very helpful to them. Talks about where the substance might leak to, what its qualities are, things it might do, evacuation distances, things about the facility that it has to deal with that. A lot of good information. So we'll hit the check mark. And again, that's information only our hazmat specialists in the Bureau will enter in there. So you won't enter these two icons in. All right, so now let's get into some of the stuff you will enter. So let's say we have fire department access. So let's say that's the main front door. We want to know this is the main door that we want to use for entry. And since there's a firewall here, we're going to say, and there's also a door over here for the other side that, oops. Oh, okay, so we can't add two. We had one, then we put the information in about that one. So you put the floor level and any comments and add it. And then if we did want to add a second one, that's where we would do that now, where we can update our point to there. And we want to add another fire department access, put our information in, hit the check mark, and there we go. Now we have our 2 points of access there. So let's go through some of this other stuff. We're not going to add every one of these icons. It's fairly intuitive. You can look at what they're titled and know that if there's, say there's a stairwell, and the stairwell is in this back corner, we want to put that there. And maybe we want to put some information about it. Maybe it's floors, basement, so -1 through 8. And we'll say it's a protected stairwell. And enter. And now that information's in there for us. And it's like that with the rest of the icons. You put the icon in, and then there's some basic information that you can add to it. Some other important ones, I mean, all of these are pretty important, but so we have sprinkler fire department connection. So let's put a sprinkler FDC. We'll say that's right here in this corner of this building. And then we have the information for that, the area that's served by that fire department connection, the location description, so it'd be the west, south side of the building, and then any comments that you want to put in. Hit the check mark again, and it puts that system there for you. The standpipe fire department connection has a different color. It's a yellow icon there. So if we want to put one of those, we'll put it right next to it there. And that's pretty much it for the icons. There's gas shutoff, utility shutoffs, alarm panel. There's quite a few in here. Hazardous material. Hazardous material is an important one. Let's add a hazardous material in here. Say they store some hazardous materials in this back corner. So this one has information that the members will add, but also that the hazmat specialist might add information. If this material happens to be a material that this facility is an EHS facility for, then the hazmat specialist is going to add information in here as well. So you would fill out all these items to the best of your ability, all the way down to where you see it start saying FPB EHS. So this is the first item here that you would not fill out, but our hazmat specialist will fill out if this is an EHS substance. So you don't have to worry about anything that says FPB EHS next to it. So here we have the little icon is the NFPA 704 placard, and we've all seen that. It's the diamond placard with the blue for blue for health, red for flammability, yellow for reactivity, and white for special hazard. So here you put the hazardous material name. If you know the UNID, you could put that there. And then for flammability, health, reactivity, and special hazard, which correlates to the 4 squares in the diamond, we have the rating of 1 through 4 and what that means. So you would select the rating for that particular hazardous material, what it is. Okay, and then the type of container, the type of likely path of release. You could put if you're going to know it's going to go down the drain right in the middle of the factory, then you would put that there. and you can put all the other information there as you go. So one thing to remember with all these items, if you see items in here that maybe you're not familiar with what they're asking and you don't feel comfortable putting that down, that's fine. You're going to put down the information you're comfortable with that you are able to put down accurately. There is going to be training coming out from the FTA when they have time to do it that will go over these points and is going to train our officers on how to enter this information accurately and consistently, so we're all doing it the same. So that's forthcoming. Up until then, we're just going to do our best, and the things you're comfortable with and familiar with, you're going to add that information, which will be 95% of it. Okay, so we got our hazardous material in there, and we have a couple other things we want to add here and go over quickly. So occupancy dividing wall. So let's add an occupancy dividing wall, and we don't want to start it there. So we're gonna undo. So say we have 4 occupancies in here, and they're divided front and back, and then left and right. So we're gonna add an occupancy dividing wall here. So say the back of this is, oops, that's it. We'll hit the check mark. So that is dividing occupancies up there. And then let's say we have another occupancy divider right next to this firewall, also divides occupancies. Okay, so here we're showing that we have 4 different occupancies in here, and they're divided by these black lines are showing where how the occupancies excuse me, how the occupancies are divided. So that's important for us to know. Like if we have a daycare in one area of the building and we have a business area in another area, we want to know that. We want to know if we have different occupancies, because different occupancies have different hazards. So now another thing we can do for those occupancies, if we have multiple, we can also add different information for each occupancy. So the bottom icon here, occupancy information, if you click on that, and we can move it to this occupancy, and then we can put the information in for that. If that's a separate business and it has separate information and contact information, then we can add that there. We can fill this out with the contact information, hit the check mark, and it puts it in there. And then maybe this occupancy over on this side here has different contact information. So we'll add another one, put the name and contact information for that one. And then we have both occupancies there. So that's pretty much it for this. We went over how to create the pre-plans, how the different items contain different types of information. And again, when you're using this, you're only going to be creating the pre-plans and adding information or updating it. We'll have other tutorials on how to view the pre-plan information. One other thing that I do want to add. So say you put something in by mistake and we realize that this occupancy is the same as the other one. So when I click on, you can't see that I'm doing it, but this icon right here, I'm going to tap on it from back here. So when I tap on it, you'll see that several things come up down below here. The reason is because when I tap on that, I'm actually touching several different layers, because like I mentioned before, they build these maps on layers. So it wants to know which layer I'm trying to access. So it's asking me, there's 4 items where you tapped. Which one do you want to look at or edit? So I'm going to select the occupancy information because that's the one I want to get rid of. So I'm going to click on that. Now you'll see that's highlighted. So that's now giving me the information for that occupancy information. So I'm going to go down. I want to delete that because I realize that there is no, it's the same owner, same contact for all of these different businesses. So I'm going to go down here and just hit delete and verify that I want to delete, and now it's gone. So that's how you would delete an item. And that's pretty much it. So we showed you how to add items, delete items, the different information for each one of those items. And as you'll see, when we back out, you'll see those icons disappear because it would get too cluttered if they don't. So if you don't see them, they're still there. You just need to maybe zoom in a little bit. And as we zoom out further, then our battalion boundaries will will appear, and we're right back to where we started from. So that's it for this tutorial. There will be more tutorials coming out for using the desktop application, as well as for viewing the pre-plans. That's a web application instead of the collector application that we went over today. So thank you very much.